Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the wrap-up video for George Simmel's discussion. I just want to stress again, you keep blowing me out of the water. You're doing beautiful work, so keep it up. It's really fantastic. I'm a happy teacher right now. So what I'd like to do today is to talk about a few things that you discussed, and I want to add a few things to it that I want you to keep in mind as we move on in the class. For the next film we're going to see and the paper that you have due at the end of the week. And I want to talk also about a reading that I've been doing, somebody that I discovered about a month ago, and he's blowing me out of the water as well. So I want to mention a few things that he talks about the city. So, money. Money. That's really important and something that we discussed quite a bit in our discussion. This is something that I mentioned in one of the replies. I want you to think about this idea in the city about qualitative thinking being sort of superseded by quantitative thinking. According to Simmel, urbanites are calculating. And he means that in terms of money, but he also means in terms of my social relations might be a way of my getting ahead, of my moving forward, getting a better job, being in a better place to live, etc., etc., etc. And so think about this sort of calculating notion of the urbanite, because I think it's going to be really important to think about the city in general. Little parentheses. I love how you are nuancing how these characteristics exist in urbanites. Simmel is not saying that every single person in the city behaves this way. He's saying it is a tendency in the city. There are calculating people in small towns. Some of you have lived in small towns. Some of you know. He's not saying that. It's not about absolutes. It's much more about the tendency to happen like this in the city. I want to add something to money, and that's time. Simmel keeps talking about the precision of time in the city. I live in the suburbs, and I catch trains all the time, and in order to come home after I'm done with my 5 o'clock class, I gotta catch a 5:26, not a 5:24, not a 5:27. It has to be a 5:26, or I miss the train and I have to wait for the 5:49. So don't forget that the way money works in the city is also very much connected to the regulation of time. Think about work, when you have to be there, when you have to leave. Think about the hours that you get and how much money you get per those hours. And so I want you to think about money always in connection to time, because those two in the city are very much connected, very much connected. You also talked about money creates a sort of specialized division of labor, and that's a very city thing to do, very city thing to do. You do this one little thing in the gigantic system of the city, and time and money sort of regulate how those things happen. So that's awesome. Keep that in mind. The blasé attitude, I'm not going to talk too much about it. You did a beautiful job in the discussion. That shrug of the shoulders of the urbanites is sort of like, oh goodness, somebody's getting mugged. How sad. I'm so glad it's not me. That kind of attitude. Don't forget that it is a defense mechanism. It's a way of surviving the city, because we have information overload in the city every single day, every single night, every single week. And so this is one way of sort of negotiating everything that happens around you when you're in the city. The last thing that I want to talk about is this idea about individuality, because I want to tweak that notion of individuality, not so much as a psychological connection, but much more in the way that Simmel talks about it, that it's about standing out from the crowd, about being unique, about not disappearing in the masses of people in the city. Simmel is famous for writing about fashion, and this is something that I mentioned briefly in the discussion. And fashion is important in the city because it's one of the ways that you stand out. You wear that scarf or that hat. You wear those jeans that are special. You wear that amazing dress. I love wearing kilts. That's one way that I separate myself from all the corporate men that are walking in the loop on my way to Colombia every day. And so think about this notion of individuality within the framework of finding yourself a way of standing out from the crowd, from the masses. And so keep that in mind. I've been reading this book by Lars Lerup. He's an architectural writer and a thinker of cities. And I've never heard of him. And I started reading him this summer, and I'm in love. He's pretty awesome. And there's something that he says that actually reminded me of Simmel very much. He says that in contemporary cities, most urbanites have three conditions. They have agoraphobia, the fear of open spaces, claustrophobia, the fear of constrained spaces, and vertigo, dizziness. And in many ways, he's sort of continuing the conversation that Simmel started about trying to think of ways in which the urbanite behaves in the city. And the more I think about it, agoraphobia, claustrophobia, dizziness, I seem to be moving between these three when I'm in Chicago, when I'm in New York, especially when I'm in places like Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, or Taipei, Taiwan, that are for me, are so different from what I think of a city, but in a way so similar from the way that I think of the city. I'm not from Asia, and so there's lots of new information that I don't understand. Agoraphobia, claustrophobia, vertigo. Think of those things. There's a video that started, I think it opened this morning, that is an introduction to the film that we're going to see. We're going to see a gangster film. And the paper that you're going to be writing by the end of this week, early next week. And so watch that, go back to the discussion, look at all the highlighted stuff, skim, look at the replies, sort of sink it all in, and then work on the paper. Of course, as always, if you have questions, I'm always checking my email. I have an app for Canvas on my phone, so every time you do something, the phone lets me know. So if you need my help, I will be happy to help. I hope you're enjoying the class. It's really weird not being able to get automatic feedback, like, are you nodding your heads? Are you okay? So it feels a little strange, but I think it's working. All right, bye guys.